Hello my friends, Ken Berry here at OB Farms. This video today is going to be a little different. This is going to be perhaps a motivational video, aka kicking you in the butt a little bit. I just want to let you know some things that I know that you may not know. So there are powers that be in modern society that do not want you to eat locally. They do not want you to buy my sheep from me. They do not want you to buy pastured chicken eggs. They do not want you to buy local beef. They want you to buy your food from the supermarket. And that's the only place they want you to buy your food. They'll try to convince you that this is not safe, that this is destroying the environment. They'll try to convince you that this is destroying the earth, is wasting resources, that you should buy factory farmed meat and GMO vegetables to feed your family. They'll try to convince you that that is just as safe as this, that that is just as natural, just as regenerative as this. Why would they try to convince you of such a thing? In many cases, it seems like our state and federal government is trying to convince us of such a thing. What's their motivation? Why do they care? So as you may know, there are very few billion-dollar corporations that basically control all of the meat processing in the United States. There are about 10 corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, that control all of the processed plant-based foods in the entire world. And so when you buy food from the supermarket, you're almost guaranteed to be supporting one of these corporations, okay? So they want to factory feed and factory finish beef and pork and chicken and sheep. That's how they want to do it, because they get to keep all the profit. The local rancher, if he's ranching for one of the big corporations, he's just barely getting by. You may have heard some of the stories of chicken farmers that raise chickens for Tyson and the other big companies can barely pay their mortgage, okay? Every time you buy meat at a grocery store, you are supporting those corporations. Now, let me say right up front that if all you can afford currently to buy is the cheapest factory-raised meat, I still think it's very healthy, and I still think that you should eat that. I'm talking today to people who can afford to do better, but just don't know that they need to do better. When you buy a sheep from me and it goes straight from this beautiful verdant pasture to the meat processor and then straight into your freezer, you cut out JBS, you cut out Archer Daniels Midland, you cut out Walmart and Kroger, you cut out all those middlemen. So what that leaves you with is a more affordable product for you and more hard-earned profit for me. So now replace me with every other local rancher and local farmer in your local community. So when you seek out somebody to buy pastured eggs from and you cut out all the middlemen, whoever raised those chickens, they're going to take home more profit. That's how it should be. The farmer and the rancher, that they should be making good money. You surely agree with that, right? But then also you're going to take home a product that, for the quality of it and for the quality of the animals' lives that provided that product, you're going to be getting more value. You're going to be getting more nutrition. You're going to be getting a better product for you and your family as well. So on a state and federal level, then you're like, okay, well, I understand the corporations, they just want to make $1 billion a year. As long as their product doesn't kill me or my family quickly, they don't really give a damn. As long as it takes 10, 20, 30, 40 years for the glyphosate and all the other chemicals and all the other antibiotics and steroids and all the other crap in the food supply, if that kills you over 20 or 30 or 40 years, then your attorney's going to have a hard time proving that. So they really don't care about that. If their product knocks 20 years off your lifespan, 25 years off your health span, they don't care about that. They have one duty, and that's to make their board of directors and their shareholders money, okay? But when you buy from a local rancher, a local farmer, a local little old man or woman who has 20 hens in their backyard, when you buy from somebody like that, not only are you taking the money from those corporations that don't give a damn about your health, you're keeping the money in your local economy. You're not sending that money to New York or LA. You're keeping that money right where you're at, which I think is a very powerful thing. Now, currently, there are not many people who think like this, and therefore you don't really see this mattering in the overall economy. But I can promise you that as more of us adopt this way of thinking and this way of living, it's going to become a big deal. And it's going to cost those multi-billion-dollar corporations billions of dollars. And in many cases, they're going to wind up filing bankruptcy because nobody wants to buy their crap anymore. Nobody wants to basically subsidize them selling slow poison to children. So now the federal and state elected officials and employees, why are they allowing this? So how many lobbyists do you personally employ? For me, the answer is zero. I don't have enough money to be able to afford a lobbyist to talk to my state legislature and my federal elected officials. I can't afford that. I certainly don't have enough money to afford a lobbyist to talk to the USDA and the FDA. So the big companies do, and they know that if they pass enough onerous guidelines and get enough regulations on the books, it effectively makes the small rancher, the small farmer, it makes it impossible for them to comply with all the regulations. And therefore, they wind up either getting fined out of business, or if they're honest, they say, well, I can't meet those guidelines, so I'm just going to find something else to do. I'll get a job at the factory or whatever. But when we all start to gently, diplomatically buck against that system, basically give that system a quiet middle finger, basically ignore that billion-dollar system, and we start doing a search. We ask at church, hey, do you know anybody raising any local beef? You know anybody who's got sheep in the pasture? You know anybody who's got hens in the backyard? When you start doing things like that, not only are you going to discover that, oh yeah, I thought there was nothing like that around me, but actually there's a guy 5 miles down the road. But then you're not going to spend your money at Kroger, Walmart, Sam's, Target. You're not going to spend your money there. You're going to spend your money with that local rancher or that local farmer. And the reason that your state employees and elected officials sometimes seems like they're against that, they're not really against it, but they know that for that next vote coming up on the House floor or on the Senate floor, they've been lobbied by 5 or 6 different lobbyists who have promised them the world, who said, hey, you know, as soon as if you get voted out, we've got a job over here for you. You can make $250,000 a year and basically do nothing. That's the kind of promises that are made every day in your state capital and in Washington, D.C. They know that if they vote against that measure, that's good for the big corporations, but bad for the local farmer and rancher, that now those lobbyists are going to be against them and trying to get them voted out of office or trying to get them fired. And so if you were an elected official and you're like, okay, this vote's not that big a deal, but they really want it. Let's just say JBS, Bayer, Monsanto, whoever, they really want me to vote yes on this. I feel like I should vote no, but it's not like this is the end of the world. But if I do vote against their wishes on this, then they're going to give my opponent who's going to run against me, they're going to give them $100,000 that they can use to buy ads and basically get me defeated. So if someone depends on the income from being a state or federal legislator, they're going to think twice about voting against these big guys. And that's why we, the little people, all the Davids running around here currently terrified of the big Goliaths, that's why we've got to start speaking up. We've got to start talking to our local state elected officials. We got to start talking to our federally elected officials. We got to start saying, you know what? We can vote your ass out too, okay? Don't think that just because one lobbyist said, I'll drop $100,000 with your opponent if you don't support this. What about the 100,000 people out here? That's 100,000 votes. You don't think that's important? Yeah, it is important. It's very important. So I would highly encourage you every time you're about to spend money on food, first of all, make sure it's real food, not pseudo food, not Franken food, but real food, real whole one ingredient foods that either grazed in a pasture or grew in the dirt. That's real food. If you're eating anything else that basically came from a factory in a plastic bag or a cardboard box, that's not real food. You're hurting your family by feeding them that. Every time you go to spend money on food, think about how many middlemen are between me and this farmer. How many middlemen are between me and this rancher? Because that's where all the profit goes, is all the middlemen. Okay? See if you can't find a local rancher. Even if you have to drive an hour, is it really that big of a sacrifice? What if you have to drive 30 minutes to find a local farm to buy produce from? Are you really too busy to drive 30 minutes? I don't think you are. I think that you want this. I think we all want this. I think our DNA, we want to see this beautiful silvopasture arrangement where there's happy animals grazing on grass in the shade of a tree. Who doesn't love that scene? You need to be encouraging this, not encouraging the confinement feeding operations of the big manufacturers, the big factory farmers. Don't encourage that. If that's all you can afford, that's fine, and I'll forgive you. But if you can afford better, please do better. This is Dr. Barry. This is just a little rant. I'll see you next time.